Alright, so one of the first things you need to know before you start drawing your comic is how large you're going to draw it at. It often pays to draw your pages larger than they will actually be printed out. This makes the line work look more detailed and finer, and it can also help cover up small mistakes. But you don't want to go too big, because the thinner lines will disappear when the picture is shrunk down to final size. Now here you can see my inks pages are a lot larger than the final artwork. If you just compare the size of his head here to the size of his head here. Ideally, you should be doing the pencils and the inks larger than the final work. Now, I think what I've done here was, this was about 150% of the size of this. So 1.5 times the size. Artists will generally work at 133% to 150% of the final page size. Just keep in mind that if your printer supplies you with a comic page template, it's probably going to be the same size as the final printout, which is this here. So you don't necessarily want to be working at the size of the template that your printer gives you. You probably want to be working at 133 to 150% of that size. So in other words, quite a bit larger. Now, as you're no doubt aware, American comics have a standard size and shape. And I've got an example here to show you. Alright, so this is an American style comic, and as is typical for an American style comic, it is 6.625 inches wide and 10.25 inches tall. Now if you're like me and you live in a country where we use centimeters instead of inches, that is about 16.83 centimeters wide and 26 centimeters tall. Manga, on the other hand, does not come in the standard size. You have the smaller manga here. This is quite a common size with manga, and this is Japanese B6. So Japanese B6 is 12.8 centimeters by 18.2 centimeters, and if you're using inches, that is 5.04 inches by 7.17 inches. A larger format, which you also find commonly used in Japanese manga, is A5. And that's like this one here. A5 is 14.8 centimeters wide by 21 centimeters tall, or 5.83 inches wide by 8.2 inches tall. And an interesting thing about A5 is that it is exactly half of an A4 sheet of paper. So if you have an A4 sheet of paper, it can be a lot easier to figure out the proportions of this. Japanese manga artists often work at B4 size, and I believe that would be for a B6. It probably has the same proportion, so you can shrink it down proportionately. You have to be careful that different paper sizes don't necessarily have the same proportion, so you can't just shrink this down to this size if they don't have the same proportions. So you have to get the size and the proportions right. So you've got a basic idea how large to draw your comic pages now, but it doesn't mean we're ready to start drawing yet. We still have a little bit more to go through before you can do that. So let's move on to the next video.